Okay, I'm going to show you today all the different command startup combinations, as in the buttons that you hold down to get the different things that you'd use every day, day to day, as a Mac technician working for a school district or any other IT job that you'd use. Now, I may miss a few, but okay, so there's you power it on and then you hold down Command R. Now this is all for Intel stuff. I'll show you the Silicon stuff in a second. But you hold down Command R, and what this is going to do is it's going to bring you to the recovery menu on your Mac. There's Shift Option Command R and Shift Command R. I might cut in here for a second and talk about the different things that those do. So you just hold it down until it boots up, until you see the Apple logo or until you hear it just chime. I usually wait until I see the loading bar and then I let go. So we'll let that load and I'll come back in just a second. Okay, so as you see here, it came up with, do you know any of the username, any of the user's passwords? You will come up with this screen sometimes. If you're an IT person, you're going to have to ask for it or reset their password. If you're trying to get to the Command R screen, and anything with the T2 chips, if you're trying to change the boot security on it. So I'm going to go on ahead and hit yes, I know this one, because it is 1, 2, 3, 4. And boom, there is your recovery menu, just like you always see. This one, like I said, will bring up the OS that's already on the device, as you see right there. So, I'm going to show you the next one now. Okay, so the next one is Option D. Option D. I don't know if you can see that. But what Option D does is it starts up diagnostic. With the older machines, it will actually do diagnostics on the machine itself. Some of the newer machines will too. But you'd use this if you have an Apple server to connect to, then you can go into the GSX side of it and run diagnostics. I unfortunately do not have that server at this moment. It will try to launch internet recovery. It does need an internet connection in order to do diagnostics, unless, like I said, it's going to test itself. This one is testing itself, as you see here. So then it will come back and say, hey, you have a memory issue or you have a SSD issue, if there is any issues. Now, it doesn't test everything. It's it's more like a post-test, but it will test things, and it comes up with a serial number and everything. It's very handy for if you're in GSX, which again, we are not. This is just doing this after lunch. Check your Mac. If you did have GSX pulled up with the serial number in it, it would then connect to it. However, I do not have that server, so I don't have that luxury. And so it's not going to come up with that. So we'll just give it a second here, and I'll show you what it says. Okay, and we're back. And I don't know if you guys can, yeah, it looks like you guys can read that. So this would be the screen that would show you if there's any issues with it. And as you see here, it gave me a reference code PPP007. And this is saying that if your power adapter is plugged in, then there's an issue because it could not test it. However, my power adapter is not plugged in. So now we're good. Now I'm going to show you the next one. Okay, so the next one is super simple. Literally, it's just power shift. Doesn't matter which shift. And what this is this is safe mode, and it makes it to where it bypasses everything but the base kernels needed to run Mac OS. And so then when you log in, you should see it say at the top, it should say safe mode. Should have said it at the lock screen too, but it didn't. Yes, safe boot. So I held it down right there for a minute because I realized that it was still loading. And the reason why is because I actually have File Vault turned on this machine. And because of that, the drive is encrypted and it won't start up into the full system until after you type in your password. So you need to hold down the shift button then if you have File Vault turned on. And that's one thing that you'll run into with some people's machines is it won't turn on, and then you have to figure that out later on. So, but as you've seen up there in the top right hand corner, it said safe boot. Right now we should be in safe mode. It doesn't say that we are, but we should be. Another one for Intels is Power Command V. And what this is it's called verbose mode. Verbose mode makes it to where, as you'll see here, it will display a whole bunch of different characters on the screen. Okay, it didn't here because I have File Vault turned on. This is a bad example. I'll have to show you on a different computer, but on an Intel, if you hold down Command V, as you start it up, you'll see a whole bunch of text go across the screen, almost like the Matrix. And that's very helpful to find out what there's an issue on. So like if you're only getting halfway through your loading screen or something, like halfway through the loading bar with the Apple logo, then it would be there's an issue with your kernel extension, and by doing verbose mode it'll tell you which kernel extension or anything else is having an issue. So if it's running into a hiccup and it turns out it's one of your apps or something, or if it runs into a hiccup doing a memory check, now you know it's your memory. And if you're lucky and you have a 27-inch iMac or an older like 2012 2013 MacBook, actually before 2012 with user installable memory, then you could replace it. But for this machine, since it has File Vault turned on, you can't do Command V. That is one downside with one downside with File Vault. It locks it down so hard. But it's also a good thing if you don't want anyone messing with your data. So I will now show you another one, I guess, and I will show you the verbose mode on a different machine in a minute. Okay, one of the last things I want to show you is how to boot off of a USB drive, or how to boot into your boot camp. This is selecting, you just hit the power button, hold down Option, and it will allow you to select any of the different partitions or drives that you have. Don't mind that, that's my other laptop. But as you see here, this is your actual Macintosh disk. This is your Windows. So this is your boot camp. This is, well, my boot camp, not yours. And you can see here and here is Big Sur and Ventura. And that is the thumb drive that we have plugged in. That is the thumb drive. So that is how you boot off of that. No, you do not need to choose a network. It says choose network. You don't need to do that. You're perfectly fine to just go about your merry way. The last one I have for an Intel is target disk mode. A lot of you might know that, especially if you work at school, but it's power and then hold down T. What this does is it makes it to where this is pretty much a hard drive. Yeah, see, the lightning bolt. Sorry, English is hard. But you can see the lightning bolt. And so what I would do is I would plug in a Thunderbolt cable on this. Now this has the old-fashioned Thunderbolt cable right there. And I think it's Thunderbolt 2 or Thunderbolt 2. And then I'd have to get one to Thunderbolt 3 if I wanted to do more of a modern laptop. So like I'd have to get USB-C to Thunderbolt 2. And so I don't have one of those. I don't use target disk mode very often. I would usually only use it if I could get a teacher's machine to start a target disk mode and I need to transfer stuff over, but Apple actually has diagnostic suites that you can use to transfer people's information over, so I'd never really even do this. And it was, I think, maybe once or twice I ever had to move a teacher's information, so I've rarely used this, but I know that a lot of schools use it when they set up a teacher's new machine. Personally, I would just tell them to make a time machine of it, but this works too. So you can also use this if you just want to pull some pictures off, or if you have any large files that you want to move from this computer to another computer and you want to use a cable. This is what you'd use that for. So I think that is all of the ones that I have for an Intel machine. How about we move on to silicon? Oh, and really quick, to get out of any of the stuff that I'm showing you, if you're having an issue with it, just power your machine off and turn it back on like this one. And you're just going to shut it off. And then if you turn it back on, it'll be fine. Another thing with File Vault turned on, it's going to want you to put in the File Vault password in order to access any of the hard drive because it's all encrypted. See, and it's just fine, but it's going to want a password to get into it. So let's show you silicon. So this is a newer but older Mac. This is a 2016, I think, MacBook. So prior to the 2019 T2 chip release, but after this edition with the light up Apple. So hit the power button, Command V. And this is also when they didn't have the chimes, but as you see here, see it looks kind of like the Matrix. So this is Command verbose mode. Actually, I'm going to take you out of the tray. Okay, so power Command V. So you see, yeah, see it looks like the Matrix. So if you were to actually be able to tell what was going on, see all the different text rolling across the screen. This is all the different processes taking place as your machine starts up. And this is just the loading bar with the Apple logo. So if it was to stop like halfway through, you'd be able to go through this. Wherever this stops is your issue. And if it doesn't stop and it goes all the way through into loading like that, then you know that you have no issue. Okay? But if not, then you'd know that it did have an issue. So that is how you know. That is verbose mode. VERBOSE. And that's just Command V. So there you go. Okay, and we have a silicon machine here. Now this is my personal laptop that I use all the time. I got it for a good deal because the touch bar doesn't work. But how can you tell it's silicon? Well, you see the planet right there? That's how you know on your function keys that it is silicon. I mean, that's not a surefire way because someone can take this key off and stick it on another computer, right? So, I mean, there is that, but the more surefire way to tell and how I'm going to show you to get into boot commands is by holding down the power button. Now, with Apple Silicon, you can't just hit power Command R if you want to get into the recovery screen. You have to hold down the power button. Same thing if you want to get into diagnostics. Same thing if you want to get into target disk mode, which they changed it. Now it's called share disk. So you're going to hit and hold down the power button. It's going to come up with Apple logo, and as you see there, it says continue holding for startup options. You can let go after holding down for a second. The Apple logo will reappear and it'll load. And once it loads through, it's going to give you your startup options. Now, what are your startup options? Well, I'll explain them here in a second, but as you see here, you can click on your disk, or you can click on options. Now, one thing I did forget to show you is if you want to boot off of a thumb drive, this is where you do it. Now, this one won't let you boot off of a thumb drive until you go into recovery mode, and you change this boot up security utility. But as you see there, Big Sur and Ventura just barely popped up. So that's how you'd boot off of that. But say you want to boot into safe mode. So you see where it says continue right there on that disk. You're going to hold down shift. And as you hold down shift, you see continue in safe mode. Now you'd click if you'd want to go into safe mode. Like this. And then you can let go of shift. And it'll load you into safe mode. And I'll be right back as soon as it comes up with it. And as you see here, it says safe boot. And again, same thing here. So if you're having an issue with your sound system, if you're having an issue with your OS or your screen's acting kind of funny, put it into safe mode. It could just be a kernel issue. If it is a kernel issue and you don't want to lose all your data and updating your software won't work, or you're on the latest version of the software, you can either downgrade a version of software, or you can hook up with another Mac and do Apple Configurator. I have a video on that. I'll link it right here. But yeah, so if you're having any issues, try safe mode. I'll show you the next ones. So once again, hit and hold the power button, and the actual Apple manual, says 10 seconds. But it takes about 10 seconds for that. As soon as this is loading, you can just let go, and it'll go on ahead and it'll start you up into it. And again, you can see the touch bar does not work whatsoever. Some of you are saying, where's the recovery menu? Well, I'll show you where the recovery menu is. Really quick though, side note, diagnostics isn't Option D anymore, it's Command D, and as you see there, continue holding for system diagnostics. I'm not going to continue holding. You already seen on the other one what it does. This one I think will also run a self-test, but I'm not 100% certain. So go ahead and hit Options and then Continue. This is the recovery menu. It's wanting a password for either one of the users. We're going to go on ahead and hit Next because I know a password. Okay, so now we're into the recovery menu. And like I said, it will do that with either File Vault or a T2 security chip. Silicon doesn't have the T2 security chip, but they have a higher version of it pretty much. So anyways, so this is the recovery menu. And if you needed to change the security startup utility, right here, it says it's encrypted, so then you'd unlock it by putting in your password. And then I would say, okay, what do you want to do? And then I'll show you. Okay, so I got it unlocked. Here is my disk. I can hit security policy, and I can hit full security or reduced security, and then I can allow different things. And then that would make it to where I can now boot off of a thumb drive. So yeah, so if you're working on a teacher's machine, you might have to have their password. And if you don't have their password and they don't want to give it to you, then you kind of have to get it because it's a requirement if you wanted to boot off of a thumb drive. If you did forget a password and it's not File Vault encrypted and anything else, you can actually go to Utilities and Terminal, and you can type reset password and then hit enter, and it will reset the password on all the accounts, and then it'll ask you to set a new password, and then you go through and set new passwords. Do not do that if it isn't your machine, okay? That's only if it is your machine, or if you have the permission of the person whose machine it is. And that's only if it's last resort, okay? Don't just go do that because you got a teacher's machine and you don't want to ask them for a password. But other than that, that is all of the boot options